or behavior, diba? So non-verbal. So it, culture affects those things, the verbal and the non-verbal language. Okay. Okay. Before I continue, do you have questions? If you have questions, I think we will have a breakout room later on, and then that's where you can raise your questions to each of us, to Sir Jerwin and to me. And before I forget, thank you, Sir Jerwin, um, for this platform that we have this afternoon. So we have decided to team teach. I think it's really better that
way that intercultural
collaborate.
is very important because it helps us to understand
Okay, there. So, are you still there? Okay. Now, we will continue, but before I will continue, may I ask people to chat on the chat box the emoticon that best represents how you are feeling now. Okay, what's this? Okay. How are you feeling today? So can you please chat on the chat box the emoticon best represents how you are feeling this afternoon? Can we do that? So there are 130 people this afternoon in the room. Okay. Does this have a chat box? Naa, di ba? Naa ba? Or wala? Okay, here. Nasa chat. Okay, thank you. Sige, so yeah, Princess. Okay, Jamira. Okay, so yeah, Gilbert says that he's feeling cold. Yeah, this morning when we woke up, I think that you guys also felt the cold. And right now in Texas, there's a crisis. Kay murag first time after a long time sa Texas, murag nagka snowstorm, and then wala sa kuryente, and then tugnaw kaayo. And I think murag no ang katugnaw no sa hangin kay mabati pod pati dari sa Philippines. I don't know if you felt that, but yes, no. That's climate change. Iba na gid ang klima. Okay. Sige, so I'm seeing a lot of people who are happy, smiling, and that's good. Okay, thank you. Sige, thank you guys for participating. Okay, so we will now continue with our discussion for this afternoon. If you are, I cannot see you guys because you are hidden, behind your camera. If you can turn on your camera, that's good. That's better so that I can see you moving. Then let me just remind you to sit properly. Basin man gud og naay nagigda-higda diha, which is probably not helpful a position for our class this afternoon. So please sit properly, and then if you have your notebooks with you and your pens for note taking, that's really appreciated. Okay, so treat this as if like that this is really our class, but things have changed. This is like the new normal for the learning. But I trust you that you are ready, your minds are ready, and you are eager and really interested and sincere to listen to our discussion for this afternoon. Okay? There's something wrong with my... Okay. There. Now let me tell you a story before I begin, before I go into like the gist or the meat of the matter this afternoon. When I was in elementary, I always see my aunts because we live in a common house. So in the house, I live with my aunts, my uncles, and then my grandmother, which is very typical of a Filipino family, a collectivistic kind of people. Now, I almost always see them do as cross stitching. Has anybody of you tried cross stitching, or perhaps cross stitching, but siguro gansilyo? Or I'm not so sure if ang gansilyo na abay pattern pareha sa cross stitching. If you have tried cross stitching, you will know that ang mga cross stitch na asalay pattern nga ginasundog or ginaawat, correct? Diba? Kaya the pattern will help them or will guide them what's next, what will happen next. It will help them predict what will happen next, and it can also help them plan, diba? Like what they should do, where to go, which color they will use next, where to go, pa downwards, pa sidewards, hantod nga ma-complete ang picture. So in cross stitching, there's a pattern, and the purpose of the pattern is to help the one who cross stitches expect what to happen and to plan and to anticipate. Am I correct? No, makarelate ani ang katog yung mga cross stitch. Pero yeah, even though you don't do cross stitch or you haven't tried it, but you've seen it, but then it makes sense that a pattern for a cross stitch is a guide to help you plan and to help you expect and anticipate something. And that basically is what cultural patterns are. Diba? The cultural patterns are shared mental programs. As you can see here on the screen, they are shared mental programs that govern our behavior. So it's shared, meaning it's not just for one person, but it's shared among the members of the community. And then it's in here, it's in the mind, it has been programmed. It starts with at that time when we are young, right? Katong sa bata pata, nay mga butang nga gitudlo sa ato sa atong ginikanan, sa ato ang palibot, like the media, for instance, because I think the media is a very strong force that really influence our identity. Diba? So that is why they say nga it's our identity is like a social construction. It is not just like based on like what we have naturally, but then also is influenced by external factors, the media. So that's why they say that our identity can be a social construction. It's based on like what your parents tell you of who you are. It's based on like what the media feeds to us about who you are. And then eventually, it builds up, and then eventually you believe that that is who you are. Okay, so it starts here on the mind, no, and it's not unique to you, but it's shared among and across members of that certain group of people, and that pattern governs our behavior. So you see, the external manifestation of a culture is on a person's behavior, diba? Ang makitaan kung unsa ang ilang kultura sa ilahang behavior. Kung magluhod-luhod na siya diha, so that behavior of pagluhod-luhod comes from deep within, sa iyahang sa sulod sa iyaha, sa iyang panghuna-huna, and even if I may share, ang pinaka layer sa culture is the worldview. Have you seen an onion? Of course, you have seen an onion. Have you seen an onion? Yes, you have seen an onion. And in an onion, there are layers, correct? Sakto, no? Nicole, si Nicole man ako nakitaan diri, oh, siya may pinaka-connect sa ako ang screen. Di ba Nicole na ay layers sa onion? Then think of the culture as an onion. At the very core, at the very center of the onion, at the very center of the culture is the worldview. Worldview, the way we see things. So muna yung pinaka-sentro o ang pinaka-external dayon nga layer kay ang atong behavior. So ang behavior, the way we behave, the way we do things, the way we act is actually rooted in the worldview. What we think is true or correct. Dara emanate, naggikan ang ato ang behavior. So cultural patterns, in general, these are shared mental programs that govern our behavior. Now, for this afternoon, specifically for this afternoon or for this week, okay, take note of this. For this week, what we would like you to do, what Sir Jerwin and I would like you to do is to describe the patterns that's specifically proposed by Gert Hofstede. Okay? Kinsa man na si Gert Hofstede, sir? Later we will know. And then another thing that we would like you to do is ma-describe ninyo ang cultural patterns sa Filipinos. Filipinos ata kay mga Pinoy man ta. Wa man siguro yung mga half dire, nabay mga half German, half dog. Pinoy man tatanan, di ba? Pinoy tatanan, di ba? So regardless of like unsa imong tribal or ethnicity, but ang atang nationality is Pinoy. That's our common denominator, di ba? So let's try to describe our cultural patterns as Filipinos based on that cultural pattern proposed by Gert Hofstede. And then the last thing that we would do is that sa karon nga semana, you should be able to describe how cultural patterns relate to cognition. Unsay connect nilang duha. Okay, ready? Are you guys ready? So, can you see this guy right here? This was 2007. My God, it's a long time ago. 2007, you do the math, 2021 minus 2007. So we rode in a bus. Can you guess kung asa mi paingon ani? Awa gali sa bus. Unsa man ilahang sinulatan. And then we happened to see this monk on our way to the province of this country. And I was amazed that I took a photo of the monk. It was my first time. And then I was able to teach in a university in this country for like 2 weeks, engaging with university students in this province in a country. And then also I was able to teach among elementary students. And I think they love the color orange in the same way that the Dutch people in Netherlands, ilang national color kay orange. I was able to go to Thailand 2007. It was really a good experience. That was really a good intercultural communication experience. This was the second time that I traveled overseas, and the third time that I've traveled overseas, and the second country that I've been to for a good purpose. So we went to Thailand. There were just 2 of us. Now, I'm sharing this to you because something happened. There's a lot of things that happened in Thailand when we went there. And then when we arrived, when we went to like roam around Bangkok, Bangkok is the capital, correct? The capital of Thailand. By the way, I think same lang ang time sa Thailand o Philippines, if I'm not mistaken. I hope dili ni siya fake news. Yeah, I think same lang ang time. Pero when we happened to roam around Thailand, I saw this. Can you see this on your screen? This is not rubbish. This is not garbage. This is holy to them. This is sacred to them. This is actually a house of spirits in a tree. This is like a big tree. Siguro kung sa ato aning pinulungan kay baliti. baliti, no? Mura ni siya baliti. Dako siya nga kahoy, and then naay ka ng mga balay, gagmay nga balay, and kanina siya I found out that it's actually like a house for the spirits, because for people in Thailand, they believe that there are spirits in objects, may it be animated or inanimated. So just like a tree, it's a living object. So they believe that there is a spirit residing or living in the tree. And so that is why they put here like a house, no, of spirits na yung mga gagmay kabalag, dara sila magpuyo. And then naay mga uban pa nga mga hiramintas. If you can see, there are like, you know, clothes wrapped around, and then I think they also offer food. That is a tree, and then you will see them. They're like bowing and like chanting something like that, because they are, you know, worshiping the spirit that lives in that tree, and that is their culture, and that is for them. They believe that the spirits in tree or in trees. That's their belief, and belief is one major component part of a cultural pattern. What is a belief? Belief is the idea that can somebody read what is belief? Idea that of what is true, correct? Of what is true in their culture. Okay, what is true in their culture. So that is belief. Now, what's another component of cultural pattern? So we're talking now about the components of cultural patterns. Another major component of the cultural pattern is what? Values. No? Can you values? No, the values. The values, by definition, these are the things that we hold dear. When we say dear, it means that it's important to us. Correct? Pareha good sa tinawagan mong mamag papa. Dear, mangaon na ta. Dear, lakaw na ta, dear. Di ba? Sana all dear. Diba? When you say dear, somebody is important or something that's important to you. Now, if you can see on your screen, what does this tell us? What is the values that we can glean on this photo? And I think this is very typical among Asians, like Filipinos. Diba? Like Filipinos, we value so much family. Correct? Yes, I'm correct. No, we value so much family, and this is very typical among Asians. We attach so much importance to family, to the point that even if we are already 40 years old, we don't leave the house of our parents. We still live with our parents, and di ba? But I think that also tells us that, you know, probably we are not that financially stable. Diba? Pero yeah, that is the culture of the Filipinos, kumpol-kumpol. Diba? So values is a component of cultural patterns that tell us of what people perceive as important, or the things that we hold here. For instance, this one. What do you see? Diba? This is very common. Mano po, mag-bless. Diba? Sa labi na sa mga tigulangan. Now, how did we learn about this one? What is the proposition about values? What is our argument about values now? Values are communicated explicitly. Everybody say explicitly. When you say explicitly, kanang kalabitang gipadayag yun, giingon yun. So say for instance, when you were young, probably you've heard your parents say nga, "Oy, Marjorie, diba? Marjorie, pag amin sa imuhang lolo ug lola." So giingnan gid ka explicitly nga pag amin, diba? So giamin pud ka, diba? Or pwede pud nga implied or implicit ang pag-communicate sa values. Siguro nakita niyo imuhang ginikanan nga nag-amin, ingawat po din, diba, when you were young. And another proposition about values is that the way people communicate, the way you talk to your parents or the way you talk to someone else actually is influenced by what you consider as important. Correct? Diba? The way that you communicate, the way that you talk the way that you know, express self, may it be verbally or non-verbally, that is influenced by what you consider as important. If you skip class, there's meaning there. Skipping class is a behavior. Being absent in class is a behavior. There could be a reason why, di ba? But then, you know, because what we were taught is that in communication is that you cannot not communicate. Naagi na meaning ang tanan. And ang meaning can be found in people. Di ba? Kaya lahi man taog pasabot. So ang meaning actually is in people. But then every behavior that we make, every words that we say, it can be, you know, interpreted in some ways. So when we skip class, people might see that as, you know, and then labi na kung kanang sige na sunod-sunod. So naay mga interpretation ang people ana. Naay message nga nakakuha ang tao ana. Even if dili na mao imong gusto nga ipaabot, pero you know, you cannot stop people from interpreting something based on like what they have observed from you. And again, our communication speaks of what we value. Sakto ba ni ka, Jane? Okay. Sila ra gud akong kakakitaan gud sa akong screen, pero I know that there are 100 plus of you. Okay, anyway, let's continue. But there can be a problem. Can you see what this lady here is holding sa man ni siya? Tinidor. What do you call that? Unsay giingon? Nicole, can you read, Nicole, please? Unsay giingon sa lady? Or anyone who would like to read? Para na lang tayo audience participation. Anyone? There are 131 of you. Anyone who would like to read what you can see on your screen? Yes, Jessafel. Thank you, Jessafel, for
Perfect. Really, no cuisine is as good as ours.
okay. Oh, pagi accent na pagi ano. Thank you, Jessafel. So yun siya nga, perfect. Really, no cuisine is good as ours. So the ours, kanang word nga ours, it must mean, you know, like a group that she belongs to. And then she's saying, no food, no cook is as good as what we do, that group that she belongs to. And this is now the problem. There is now a problem arising this statement. And this is what we call ethnocentrism. Kung atong himay-himayon, ethnos talks something about ethnicity, and then centrism talks about like center, no? Ang focus, ang tutok sa on something is on your ethnicity, on your group, whatever group you belong to, or whatever group this lady belongs to. And that is a problem. And if you are a student in TCM 323, either under Sir Jerwin or Sir John, you should not be ethnocentric. Okay? Wala may estudyante nga mga ethnocentric. Kaya nakakuha man sila TCM 323. Very good na sila, Sir Jerwin, di ba? Ang mga students sa TCM 323 are students who have this cultural relativity, meaning that you judge or you look at people's culture based on their standards, not based on your standards. Because it's not about you. Okay? It's not about your culture. When we want to try to live in peace and harmony, you have to have an understanding of where these people are coming from. Not geographically, but based on their behavior. But I mean, like, not geographically, but their behavior. You try to understand why ingon ani sila og nilihukan. Nganong ingon ani ilang taras? Ngano di ay sila ngayon ani ilang ginapakita? And that is being cultural relative. Diba? Ang framework sa imuhang paguna-huna kay dili pinabase sa kung unsa ka ug aha kagikan, but pinabase sa kung unsa sila. Can I hear a yes to this? So, TM33 students, you are not ethnocentric. You do not judge people based on what your standards are or what your cultural standards are, but it's based on their culture. Okay? Now, this is very interesting because our values, we are still on values, all right? Number 2 component of cultural patterns, values. Values can have can have both valence and intensity. Valence and intensity. So values can have a positive valence or can have a negative valence. And values can be, can be intense to some degree or to some level. What do you see on your screen? I'm sure you will say that you see 2 beautiful ladies, correct? As beautiful as the TCM ladies in the TCM program in UST PCDO. But you know that these ladies come from different cultures, correct? The one that's draped in a flag, obviously, that comes from the United States of America. She's pretty right now. And equally pretty is this lady right here who has a black bong on her head, and is holding, I think, a sunglass. Diba? But these ladies come from different cultures. One is from the United States, a Western culture, and one coming from an Arab country. Say probably in Jordan. I think that's an Arab country. Yeah, somewhere in the Middle East. Pero, you know what? In the United States, being equal, women being equal with men, that has a positive valence. Now they put so much importance that is a positive valence to women being equal with men. That what man can do, hey ladies, we can also do that. And ang intensity ana nga positive valence is very high. Ilag yun ang ginapangusgan nga dapat, dili dapat mag-under ang mga babae sa mga lalaki. But we are equal with men. That's the sigaw, that's the shout out of the women in America. But then in Arab countries, ang nang idea of equality, women equal with men, that has a negative valence. That is, that's not really a thing sa ilaha. And then negative siya nga valence, and then high level po yung intensity. Nga even probably to the point na naay balaod nga ilahang gina-establish or gina-pass as a law, di ba, nga like dili pwede mag-drive og car ang babae, or dili pwede mo eskwela ang babae. So probably so yun ka-intense ang negative valence of equating men or equating women with men. So these are 2 different values coming from different cultures, American culture and the Arab countries culture. I think karon labi na sa Amerika, ginatagaan yung importansya ang equating men with women with men. Labi na tungod kay ang ilang vice president, kay kinsa ang vice president sa Amerika? Sorry. Kinsa ang vice president sa Amerika, people? Si Kamala Harris, right? Diba? Si Kamala Harris, and she's the first Asian American and Asian American president. My animation is not working well. What's happening? Pero yeah, na-relate lang po din ako kay recently I've read si Rabia Mateo, the Contest of Philippines, the Miss Universe pageant. And I know that the Filipino culture is a culture that really is like into pageantry. Di ba? Anak kita. Naay statement si Rabia Mateo recently, I think before February 14, nga iyang iyahang gi bangga gi counter ang statement, ang sexist remark ni President Duterte about women. Ana si Duterte nga, women cannot be like good leaders or they cannot be president. And for Rabia Mateo, she said nga, no, women can be as equally as good as men for presidency. This reminds me that this can be a very good study. You might want to like do an analysis or the content analysis of the sexist remarks of our president. Diba? I think we can all agree nga naging siya mga pamulong nga medyo sexist kayo against mga babae. Just like what he said when he said nga women cannot be like good leaders. I'll leave that to you to decide. This is not promoting anti-Duterte, something, but you be critical of like what you hear on the news. Okay, now we will now move on to Geert Hofstede. But before Geert Hofstede, I remember that there's a comparison on the module that you have. There's a comparison there of like 3 cultures, Americans, Japanese, and Arab cultures when it comes to the values nila. So again, for instance, Americans, ang number 1 nilang value, they value so much and they put so much importance to freedom. What is that statue gali nga naa sa New York? Atong sa island sa New York? Statue of Liberty, di ba? That is a sign nga they really put so much value on like freedom, liberty. And to the point nga they have actually inculcated that to the Philippine culture kanang freedom, diba? Dira nato nakasailahan ka ng mga concept about kanang liberalism, liberty and all that. But the Japanese, in comparison, ang number 1 nila nga cultural value kay belongingness. Diba? Dili pwedeng ma-OP ka. Dapat ma-belong gid ka, mauban ka, family, togetherness, something like that. The Arabs, value is family security. Diba? Family security. Sir, unsay relevance anang picture nga gibutang nimo? Anybody can recognize unsa boy band kaning picture? This is I think Intersecond. It's the Japanese American boy band. Sila lang din akong gibutang dara kay mix sila Japanese American. Anyway, we will now continue to the third component. So what's the first component? Belief. What's the second component? Values. What's the third component of cultural patterns? Okay, we will have a clue based on this photo. What do you see on your screen? Lizzie Bacor, are you there? Or anyone who would like to answer? What do you see on the screen and what could this be about in relation to cultural patterns? What do you see on your screen? Is this something familiar to you?
Norms, sir.
What do you see? Kinsa to? So you see a shoes or a pair of shoes, pairs of shoes that was left or that were left outside of the house, that were left on the doorstep. And this is very familiar to us as Filipinos. Diba? So the third component of the cultural patterns are what we call the norms. What are norms? Norms are like rules that are socially enforced. So like mga balaod or mga code of conduct, like unsay dapat ato ang lihukan or dapat ato ang pas, and it's socially enforced. The people around us or the things around us, these are the things that cause us to like behave in a particular manner, because again probably you were taught explicitly by your parents na dapat hubuon ang sapatos kay para dili madala ang hugo gikan sa gawas paingon dito sa sulod. I cannot forget this this norm, because it was because of this norm nag-away mi sa akong kauban, no, kay we were in Dumaguete, and then kami mga siguro mga subrak sa napulo nang puyo sa gamay nga balay. Then of course ligi ibilin ang chinilas, ibilin ang sapatos nga. I was so immature back then. Naulit ko kay ang chinilas nako nagibilin nako sa gawas gamit sa uban. So nagika gid ko kay nganong gigamit sa uban. Ingon ako ka immature, di ba? I don't know with you guys, do you like nga ang imuhang gamiton sa imong manghod or sa imuhang magulang, or ga-share ba mo og mga gamit sa imong mga igsuon? What's the rule sa balay? Okay lang ba nga maghinuslan na or dili, like ang imo gyud, ang iya? I don't know, lahi siguro ta og mga rules, no? Pero yeah, norms are rules that are socially enforced, and this is the last component of the cultural patterns. So again, you have beliefs, you have values, and you have norms, and these comprise cultural patterns. If you will study the culture of another people, you will then now have an idea as to like what their beliefs, values, and norms are, and that will help you predict, that will help you plan, or that will guide you as to like how you should behave towards them, or how you should communicate with them, knowing that ingon ana ang ilahang norms, ingon ana ilahang beliefs, ingon ana ang ilahang values. If you can see at the bottom of your screen, naman kita diha, there's a check mark there. That's like a link, a very interesting link to a resource material about the do's and the don'ts. When you want to travel in Asia, this is a very helpful resource material on like what are the things that you need to consider in Asia, no? When you want to communicate or interact with people in Asia. Okay? Sige. So let's continue. Are there questions? Okay, pero let me just strike this home, or like this home, that the relationship between the cultural patterns and communication is reciprocal. So that means nga ang cultural patterns nato mura siyang filter, just like my eyeglass. The way that I will interpret the people that I see is based on like, you know, my beliefs and my patterns and my norms, di ba? So siguro kung wala ko nagtuon kayo, no, sa culture sa ubang tao, like sa katong sa mga Thailand people or whoever, so moingon din kung hala, wag dili man na maayo kung ingana kadaghan ang ilahang bana o ilang asawa, pero mo ang gud na ilang kultura man good. So again, dili nimo dapat lantawon ang ilang kultura of your own lens. Pero na ana nga tendency, because we are looking at it in our own lens, in our own pattern, then na ay mga problema na dayon in you know, in our relationship with people. So again, we are not ethnocentric people, but we have to have cultural relativism. So look at it based on their standards, not from your standards. So ang cultural pattern nato, it's the filter through which we understand people's belief, norms, and values. Ang ato pong pag-communicate kay, again, based kung unsa ang ato ang pattern, di ba? And then we learn these cultural patterns through communication with others in our culture. Okay. So, nagbaliktad ligi siya. What's happening? Okay. I am now on this part. Sige, if ano sa siguro ta stretching, I can see some people, they're turning on their camera. Before we proceed to the next half, can we do a stretching? Probably can lift your arms upward for 5 seconds. Sige, just to break the ice. Just stretch arms upward and then put your arms on the side. Sige, try to stretch. Kay basin og ng gahi na kadiha. Okay, down. Sige, stretching para dili kayo ta ano. Okay, so I hope that it helped. Okay. Sige, let's continue. So the next half, we are down to the last installment for this afternoon's meeting. This is the one that I was talking about earlier, Gert Hofstede. And siguro, murag ulaw man i-admit, pero kagahapon lang nako siya nabalaan nga Dutch day siya. He's Dutch, di ba? And then, Dutch people have a special place in me. So he's Dutch, he's a professor. His name is Gert Hofstede, and he's responsible for this specific approach in studying cultural patterns. There are actually a number of them we can, discuss, but then in the interest of time, let's just limit it to Gert Hofstede's approach in studying cultural patterns. So this is like a framework in understanding cultural patterns of people. What happened? Sometime, I think 1960s, Gert Hofstede studied like thousands of employees in IBM, diba, across the globe. And that study led him to categorize 4 dimensions of people's cultural patterns. What are these dimensions? Number 1, you have, okay, balik-balik, siya na. Okay, there, pak, okay. The first dimension that I would like to share with you this afternoon based on Gert Hofstede's approach to studying cultural patterns is collectivistic and individualistic culture. Can you see the photo? Yeah. When I was preparing for this presentation, I remembered a friend of mine who lives in California. And then I was quite alarmed when he posted this sa yang Facebook because he got into like a feud, away, with his neighbor in California. Originally, he lived in Fresno, California, but then he moved to another neighborhood pero dera na gyapon niya sa California. And by the way, karon di ba sa Texas kaya again atoy snowstorm. So murag the weather is crazy because of climate change. But then yeah, in California, isa ilang neighborhood, he got into like a fight or a quarrel with his neighbor because the neighbor complained. What was he complaining about? He was complaining about the children of my friend playing, but they were playing within the bounds of their house lang. Pero ang neighbor gisamukan kay gaambak man ang mga bata, ga basketball. Pero nasa silang balay. Pero siguro wala na anad ang neighbor nga ingon ana. So nag-complain siya na siya yung mga gipangsulti nga mga mga threatening kaayo na mga pero it went a while pero it came to a point na wala na antos sa katong akong friend. So that is why he called the police one time kay murag ning sulong naman tong neighbor sa ilahang balay. So he called the police kay nagkitabang perang ma-settle. Pero this really got into him. And then nagrant siya sa Facebook, nganong ingon ana man, nganong nagailabtan man ni nga amo maning property so we can do whatever we want in our property. And the kids are just being kids. And kids love to play, right? So dapat pasagdan rami. So this I think is a good example for me when it comes to being an individualistic culture nga, let me do what I want to do because this is our property. But then also when this happened, when each of them spoke up, that's also another characteristic of an individualistic culture. Ang mga individualistic na mga culture, they are not trained or they are not taught to be silent, but musturya gina sila. That is a quality of individualistic culture. If they think that they are right, they will really speak their mind. Pero kita mga Pinoy, mga collectivistic, correct? Bisan og gusto gid pa nga dili, muoo na lang kay para nga walay gubot. Correct ba, Joyce? 'Di ba? Bisag labag sa tong kalooban, para nga dili magubot o kanang para na sense of makisama sa uban, dili na lang ta motingog, hilom na lang ta. 'Di ba? So collectivistic culture, example, Philippines. Mostly kanang mga Asian countries are collectivistic. Just think of the our tendency to really kumpol-kumpol uban-uban gyud sa pamilya nya daghan kay tag pamilya no ng great number atong family kaya bitang ma-invite sa wedding. Kinsay nakatry ana, di ba, kana mang-invite sa wedding, usahay kay lisod kaayo siya nga proseso, kay lisod kaayo nga dili maimbitar si kuan kay basin og mamasugo. So muna nga ang labas, di ba, grabe kay murag fiesta ang wedding, di ba, na ay reception sa restaurant, pag abot pa dito sa balay, sa barangay, whatever, naa po dito reception sa mga neighbor, kay again we are a collectivistic kind of people. So you can see here the difference between collectivistic and individualistic. What's next? This is the second dimension, the small and then large power distance culture. Di ba? Ang large power distance meaning nga kung kinsa ang boss, for example, dako kayo og gap between sa boss ug sa iyang employee. Pareha diri sa USTP or I think in any other offices in the Philippines, kay dapat gid butang og doctor, correct? Kay doctor good siya, di ba? Or dapat butangan gid og PhD, kay that speaks of the power that that person has. Unya ma-distinguish gid nimo ba kung kinsa ang taas o kinsa ang nasubos. That is a manifestation, di ba, of a large power distance. Pero ang small power distance, I was surprised. Shane, I was surprised, Shane. You know what I was surprised, Shane? Kay sa friend nako sa States, ila lang tawagon iyang papa og, for example, yang ngalan siyang papa kay Randy. 'Di ba? Ang bata moingon lag nga teenager moingon lag, "Hey Randy." 'Di ba? That verbal communication is a clue that sa ilaha you can call the person nga kung sa atoa siguro dapat na siya itawag na title kay mas taas man na siya nga tao, pero sa ila kay they can just call their their dad using their first name of the dad. So you can just call your dad, "Hey Randy," if Randy is the name of your father. Pero dili sa atoa dili pwede nga randi-randihon lang nimi mong papa, kay dapat papa gyud pa or tay, di ba? Then aminin ka. Di mo pwede tawag-tawagon imong mama nga, "Huy Judith." Na pinabundak pa gyud, di ba? Kay mama gud na papa gud na authority. So that is a manifestation na diri sa atoa there's a large power distance. Politicians dapat honorable gid na sila. Dili pwede nga dili nimo tawagon si May Oscar Moreno nga, "Huy Uka," or usab ba say ngalan niya ana, Oscar Umuy Moreno, dili pwede ana. But na ginay honorable, then mayor. Okay, that speaks of the large power distance. Okay? Next. Next na ko kay murag na ko yung nakitaan nga ng langhab. Aw. Sa maigo lang, joke. What do you see on your screen, people? Ato ning i-relate sa gugma kay para interesting. Kinsa man akong laing tawagon ha? Murag ako gakakitaan diri sa akong screen kay. Kinsa pa may lain? The next dimension of Hofstede is the uncertainty avoidance. Okay, balik na to dire. So I chose this picture because this can be like an image that explains or that shows a person who took the risk of jumping from one cliff to another even if it might, mean that he or she will die. But I think babae ni siya, she took the risk of jumping. Now, kini siya nga tao probably comes from a culture nga small or weak uncertainty avoidance. Nga bahala dili siya sigurado kung makalanding ba siya sa pikas. Basta mo try lang ko moabak ko. So na may anak nga mga culture. So ay mga culture pod nga mga sigurista. Correct? Nga strong ang ilang uncertainty avoidance. Ga-avoid sila on things that they are not certain about. Diba? Kung sa mag-uyab pa na, siguro si Dante, for example, na ba si Dante dere? Dante, kung dito ka, igalaw mo ang baso. Diba? Na example, si Dante, no? Kung musulod siya in a relationship, siguro mingon siya nga, like, i-define gid nato unsa gid ta? Unsa ta, uyab ta or dili? Diba? Kaya kung uyab ta, hindi dapat every Monday, 5 to 8 p.m. Kita raging duha, tinawagan ka sa phone. That should be our time. And then siguro by Wednesday, you have to pick me up sabay, and then let's go somewhere else. And then Friday, let's have dinner together, Fridays. So na yung mga rules para to make things certain. And then unsa gid define nato tong relationship? Unsa ta, uyab ta or what? Diba? So that's like, setting rules and policies because you wanted to make things clear and certain. Correct? Kaya kung mingon siya di pa ko sure. So sige, better na lang, bulag ta kay I'm from a culture that, wants really to make things certain. So kung dili ka sure, I don't want to take the risk. Sige, let's better call this off. Diba? So, ingon ang weak and strong uncertainty avoidance culture. So there are cultures nga it's okay for them to take the risk. Pero there are cultures na they wanted to be sure. Diba? And then siguro yung makitaan diri sa table nga ang stress is high for cultures who are strong in uncertainty avoidance. Stressful siya nga culture. Pero sa weak nga uncertainty avoidance na culture, the stress is low. Okay, let's proceed. Now, what do you see on the screen? So you see the symbol. I think these symbols are very common to gender, the male and the female. And there are cultures based on Gert Hofstede's study. There are cultures that can be categorized as feminine, and there are cultures that can be categorized as masculine. So, what is a characteristic of a feminine culture? It says here, everyone should be modest. Diba? Kanang hinhin, kanang dili maninghan, kanang, murag calm and collected. Pero sa masculine culture, the male to be assertive, ambitious, and tough. Okay? So that's characteristic of masculine. Sa masculine nga culture, ang women are to be tender and take care of relationships. Pero sa feminine nga culture, men and women are allowed to be tender and concerned with relationship. Sa feminine nga culture, both fathers and mothers deal with facts and feelings. But then sa masculine nga culture, it's the fathers who will deal with facts, mothers deal with feelings. Diba? What do you think ang Philippines, ang Filipino nga culture, are we a feminine or a masculine culture? You don't need to answer me now. Kaya daghan man kayo mabasing mag-chorus mo. Think about it. Unsa ka ang Philippines? Are we a feminine or a masculine culture? So, the countries can be categorized on either or differently on the dimensions that Gert Hofstede has found out after that he has surveyed employees in IBM. So we are down to the last slide, I think. What do you see on the screen? I think that there are people here in this room who love to eat this street food. I think I'm one of them. Every time nga muuli ko sa balay, malabyan gyud nako niniga pamaligya dapit sa amo aging ani street food. And this is very typical of a Filipino culture. And actually, has survived probably college because of this food. Because, probably the food in the cafe can be so expensive. So others, eat the street food, which is very typical in a Filipino culture. But, we will not talk about food. Although food is a very important part of one's culture. Now, my question is, how does each of Hofstede's dimensions of cultural patterns displayed in the Filipino culture? So what are the dimensions again found out by Hofstede? Power distance. So ang power distance can be small or can be high. Diba? So that's a power distance. And masculine and femininity dimension. So there are culture nga masculine and there are culture nga feminine. And then there are culture nga strong ilang uncertainty avoidance, meaning panigurado gid sila, and ay culture nga low ang uncertainty avoidance or weak, meaning it's okay for them na dili sila certain. Pwede sila mo take sa risk, bahala na, diba? And then another dimension, and which is the last one, is the individualistic and collectivistic culture. For sure, Filipinos are collectivistic kind of culture. We love to go together. Bisag naa siguro ka sa United States, unya Mayo naman, nya bulanon ka, uli yung pagbuhol. Di ba? Nga man ang mga bulanon, di ba? Like bisag asa pa sila sa kalibutan. Di ba? Kuan gid kay sila. Sige, dagan man na piyesta sa buhol basta Mayo. Mga bulanon dire. Naa siguro. Okay. So, that's the end of the presentation. And let me just review the objectives that we have set for this week for ourselves. So again, you should be able to describe the cultural patterns proposed by Geert Hofstede. So what are these? Motong upat. So dapat ma-describe to nimo silang upat comes the time that we will, do the exam. And then describe the cultural pattern of the Filipino culture based on Hofstede's dimension. And describe how cultural patterns relate to communication. So again, our cultural patterns are like filters or are like lenses. We see people based on like the cultural patterns that we have. But again, let's be mindful. Hashtag mindful that we have to interpret their culture. We have to understand their culture, and that means studying, like, so that we will know where they are coming from. Why are they saying these things? Why are they behaving in such a way? Yeah, yun ana siya. So that's the end of my presentation for this afternoon. Thank you so much for taking time to listen this evening because it's already 6:17. And I hope that everything is clear. But then, if you have questions, Sir Jerwin and I are here to answer your question. Sir Jerwin?
Yes, thank you very much, Sir John. No, it was a very fruitful mga things that you guys learn about intercultural communication, especially on the cultural patterns. Now, this time I'm going to open the rooms for all of you. So you just have to select the class kung asa mga room supposed to be musulod. So if I'm going to open now the room, just select lang dayon for our what they call this nawala ko sa kuno na breakout session. Okay, and I think Sir Jan, dili na ta mo balik sa sa breakout sa main room. Then pwede na din mo leave kung kinsa pag okay na. So I'm now going to open our rooms for our kumbaga separate discussion. All right?
Yeah. How many minutes do we just stay in the room?
30 minutes is allowed, Sir John.
Okay. Sige, thank you.
All right. Pwede na yun mo leave kung gusto niyo, pwede na din na balik sa main room. Okay guys, you may now
go to the breakout room.
Yes.
Ding ding ding.
Go na guys.
Dapat kit answer.
Wala ni gawa sa imo?
Wala.
Just lang,
Wala
sir,
po sa ako, sir.
Oo, sagdi lang kay kamulo pa ang uban. Nanulod na sila. We have still 69. Gagawa siya, Sir Jan,
Nakita na-
actually.
Nakita na ako si Eric. O si Nika Jane. Hala ka bibo no kay dagan kita.
Daghan ka ayo, 100 ka pin, di ba? Ay, congratulations, Sir Jan. And thank you for,
Very good. Thank you so much, Sir Jerwin.
di ba? Magiging teaching gitawag ba nga, Rex? Kung ito,
Correct.
team effort.
Because 2 is better than
Than 1. Kamulo naman sila sulod ng uban na sila sa breakout room sa uban.
hala. Sa breakout.
Asa na dapit, sir? Dili
Wait
may
lang ha.
kabalo ka access.
Ako na isend. No, nakasulod
Wait
na
lang,
silang Sir John. Ay, isend na ako si Sir John dito sa ano. Nakakita na ka, Sir John? Sa imo nga?
Hala, nawala, Sir Jerwin.
Nawala.
Nagbuang-buang ligi niya akong cursor.
Ano man?
Sama niyo eh. Dili na ako makitaan. Invisible siya nga cursor.
Di ay?
Mga timailhan na gid ni.
Hi! Panahon na! Nga magpalit ka
Nga
na.
mangutang na punta.
Di ba? Ano lang. Nakita na ni
Good
mo?
luck sa 40,000. Wala gyapon.
Di lang, ako kay ano. Dagan-dagan yung estudyante nga nag-attend ba yun?
Wala lang ang 3K1 karon.
Oh, pero dagan-dagan sila, Sir John. Maka-appreciate pa ni mga bata apod ba yan? Di lang, Sir John, kay o pumunta na ng lieutenant karon. Kagugot pa to sila ba, sure ko. Oh my God, ako in-assign nga 3K2 na sa ako. Three K2, Sir John. 3K4. Na-assign na ka na po, Sir John. Saan na mo? Uy, Sir John, ano mag-good ka, Sir John? Oh,
Asa? Nana ko?
ako naka-imove.
Sa room?
Sa imove ka kabalo.
Hindi na ako makitaan akong cursor.
Isulod ka na ako sa room, ha? Hello, I love you. Move to... Kaya sa i-move ta ka. Ay, Sir John, ibalik ta ka sa ako, ah. Sa ako ka mo sulod. Actually, isulod ta kagbalik sa imo. Okay. Go na, Sir John. Pwede na ka. Sulod ka, Sir
Join.
John. Oh, join na.
Join, di ba?
Oo, join.
Problem lagi na ako kaya di ko makitaan akong cursor.
Hindi mo ako quit on.
Di na ako
Sige, ano na lang.
Mas,
Okay.
Ay,
Salamat kaayo.
ay sa. Okay, ay sa lala. Buang nga ani eh. Ay here. Ay sa.
Nagkaon si Ma'am Ampi na siya iyang food. Sunod na ka?
Hala, very wrong. Hala, murag ako ra ginabili no? Ay, 1, 2, 3. Ano man eh? Si Virgie. Abihero. Durban? Wala po ka kasulod, Charlene. Wala gyapon ko kasulod do. Saan ka ni? Leave na lang ta, uy. Nabiyaan ta sa Eriday. Si Romulo, hala, kita gyud lima na bininday. Si Sipida, Abihero, Durban, ug si Limuel John Romulo. Very wrong. Nangabiyaan ta day. Wala naman si Sir Jerwin, dili ta ma-add. Wala na, kita ra lima dari day. Saan na to pag-istorya? Hala, uy, sama ningi. Sana man eh. Si Sipida, nawala. Upat na lang yun taday. Mag-out na ko ron. Very wrong. Hala daw, binita ka pamilit karon